Hey, welcome to the channel. I'm Dr. Shamim Nazir. I'm an ER physician turned real estate investor. And I created the Doctor Investor to help others understand more about alternative investments, specifically real estate. And I usually talk about commercial real estate because I am an active physician. I work full time. And for me, becoming an active real estate investor was really not an option. And so I chose to invest passively through real estate syndications. However, a lot of people want to be more actively involved and want to have more control over their investment. And one of the common ways people do this is to invest in single family homes. And acquiring single family homes and fixing, flipping them, or acquiring them for rental income is quite complicated. And a lot of times people will ask me, like, Shamim, should I buy rental properties or turn it or do an Airbnb or other things like that? And I usually advise them to consult someone who has done this for a while and is experienced, because it is a very complex process. And if you're not prepared for all the ups and downs, you could find yourself in a lot of trouble. I did try to acquire single family homes for a little while, and I found it to be too much work as a full time physician to go through the effort of finding the properties and then being in charge of the rehab and financing and all those other things that go into it to make it profitable. So I chose the passive route, but I have a very good friend who is part of a real estate investor community here in Dallas. And he's been doing this full time for 3 or 4 years now, and he's been very successful at it. And so today we're going to go do a property tour with him and talk to him a little bit about his process and what it takes to really acquire and fix and flip a single family home. So let's go there now. Today I have here with me Grant Gale. And the reason I wanted to talk to you, Grant, is because a lot of people ask me about single family homes and how to acquire and flip and invest in single family homes. And that's something I'm not an expert in. And I thought this would be really cool for you to share how you do your process, because I know there's a lot involved in acquiring, especially the home to begin with, and then figuring out the best disposition for that.
Yeah, absolutely. So today we're here at one of our properties that I'm just on the tail end of a flip, and we're going to do a walkthrough, show you what it looks like. We've got some before pictures, and we definitely are on the after stage now. We're right about ready to list it, and we haven't staged it yet, so you're going to get a sneak peek right before we list it. And we'll go over the numbers, show you what it's like. It's definitely not like HGTV, where everything works out magically at the end. It's you have to buy it at the right price. You have to understand the market, the inventory, everything. So we'll go over that today.
Okay, awesome. Let's get started.
All right. Well, it all started back in 2008 before I met my wife. She bought a entry-level home right when the market crashed. And we went to sell it a few years later. We were underwater, I guess you could say. And I had spent $20,000 on foundation. It was a mess. So I had a very small-time real estate investor friend of mine that said, why don't you hold on to it as a rental? Fast forward 10 years, the house doubled in value. We had no problems with tenants. And I decided, how do I get more of these? So I joined a real estate group that we're both part of the inner circle here. And they taught me everything I know. And now I'm at about 28 rental properties. I'm currently flipping 8 houses concurrently all throughout Texas. 3 right now up here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, and this is one of them. A lot of times I'll do partnering with new real estate investors. So a new real estate investor contacted this individual because she had inherited this property from her late father, and it was this close to being foreclosed on through a reverse mortgage. So the seller was extremely distressed, unable to pay what the reverse mortgage company was asking, and they were just a few days away from being foreclosed on when it was brought to me through a partner of mine that I helped train to bring me leads. So that's how I found this one. This one was a mess.
Yeah. Wow, this is beautiful.
We put in quartz/marble looking countertops, hard surface countertops, brand new kitchen cabinets, new appliances. There used to be a wet bar over here. We got rid of that. We have kind of a little dining area right here. And it was a massive disaster. The backyard when we
Wow, this is
bought
a
it,
big yard.
yeah, it's huge. It goes
I'll
all the
take
way
a look
back.
over
It's a
there.
nice corner lot. And it wraps around too. So the backyard, when I bought it, was fenced in, kind of from right here all the way to that little concrete pad. And it was fully rotted out, like you felt like you were going to fall through the deck. And it had a jacuzzi that had been rotted out as well. So we got rid of that. We redid the shed. This was one of the original sheds there. The first of the 3 bedrooms here, street facing, front facing. We replaced the doors, but as you can see here, the trim is not original. So similar size, similar layout with a nice little closet, light fan combo, matte black fixtures. You have a remote for the fans, not lots of natural light you can let in. My realtor is also on my power team, and she is the one that came up with all of the design as well as layout, because she's actually remodeled a home similar to this with similar issues. Are kind of the beech wood, where it still has gray in the flooring, but it has more natural earth tones. And the final room here is the master bedroom. Master bedroom, we had a little bit of mold issue up here that has been fixed. With the AC, the insulation wasn't properly done in the attic, and we redid the ducting in the attic, got that handled. And then the master bathroom is so when we originally purchased the house, we had an artist here that had painted some dolphin type stuff on the wall. It was like this khaki blue. It was cool for the homeowner, but not broadly appealing to the general population when they're buying a house. And we had a center divider that ran down the middle. And we had a sink here, a sink there. It's a really weird layout. So what we ended up doing is we cut out that middle wall, put a his and her sink right here, put in a freestanding tub. We had a much larger shower, and kept a lot of the closet space here because you can have a his and her closet with this layout. So a lot of times when you see these home renovation programs, they're knocking down walls, spending ridiculous amounts of money, and then somehow they come in mysteriously under budget. That's not how it goes. With this house, I think we actually exceeded our budget by around 20%. So we had to put in a buffer. I always like to put in a buffer for repairs, just in case we find something unexpected. And in this case, we just had to make sure we did everything right. And sometimes it takes a little longer and costs a little bit more money to do it right. So the end result, though,
yeah, it's beautiful. I love it.
Speaks for itself.
Yeah. Very cool. Amazing. Grant, tell us about the process. How do you go about finding a home? Because I know finding it at the right price is critical.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So we start off with a list of your typical motivated sellers. And what I mean by that would be, with this one specifically, it was an inherited house. So people that go through a probate process when they inherit a house from someone else, that gets posted publicly with the county. And they have list providers that provide lists, and you just call them up or shoot them a text or knock on their door. It's very much a hands-on, direct type of marketing, but there's different ways to market as well. You can pay for pay-per-click ads like Google AdWords, like Facebook ads, where you're marketing directly to someone who might be interested in selling their home. That's very successful, but it's also costs some money to get a return on it. So beyond that, landlords. I happen to be on some landlord list because I have a non-owner occupied house, and I'm on a list, and I get quite a few calls and texts. So I would say the most profitable and most motivated type of seller is someone that needs to sell, doesn't have the ability to do the repairs themselves or the financial means to do the repairs themselves, and has some sort of timeline that they have to meet. So people that are being foreclosed on, unfortunately, run into some severe financial distress to the point where they can't make their mortgage payments anymore. We come in, we offer them a helping hand. With this house specifically, we're giving the majority of the profits to the seller. We're just taking a 15% commission or 15% flat fee on the house when it sells. So the house we're projected to sell at about 500,000. So 500,000 times 0.15 is what we're making. So 75,000 is roughly what we're going to be making, I believe, on this house. Did I do the math right? Yeah, 75 grand.
Yeah,
and the seller gets the rest.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
So does that answer your question?
Yeah, a little bit. So, I mean, how many people do you call or get through to find a property that you can work with?
Yeah, so I do quite a different partnership. I do quite a few different partnerships and quite a few different marketing methods. If I'm knocking on someone's door, I have to knock on 50 doors. Maybe 10 to 20 people will answer. Of 10 to 15 people that I talk to, half of them already have their problem fixed. The other half don't want to sell. And maybe one person out of 50 doors that I would knock on would actually want to sell me their house. The rest are doing their own thing, or they may end up getting foreclosed on. You can only help them so much. Mm-hmm. So that's with door knocking. With cold calling or texting, we have a way to scale that. It's more efficient using a power dialer. You can dial up to 200 people in an hour, and you have to make sure you scrub that against the do not call list. And people tend to respond better through texting, I found. So with those methods, you can reach more people. So texting, cold calling, door knocking, those are all inexpensive ways to market to motivated sellers that are either getting their house probated, foreclosed on, doing some sort of loan modification, landlords that just went through an eviction, people that got a code violation from the city. They might not even be able to afford to mow their grass, or they've moved out. So there's always people, more people exist than you can talk to in a day. So there's a big blue ocean of people that might want to sell their house, but it's definitely, on the other hand, a numbers game. You might have to talk to 20 people that will give you the time of day before one of them would sell you their house.
Mm-hmm. And then even then, when you find someone like that, you probably have to work with them over time to really get to that place. Is that correct? Or
yeah. So with buying someone's home, people tend to be emotionally attached to their properties, or emotionally detached and just want a high number. You know, some people might want $500,000 for a house that needs $300,000 in work, and they might owe $400,000 on it. So it doesn't make any sort of sense to buy. So you have to do a back and forth negotiation process with the sellers and come up with a number that's a win-win. So a number that works for both the seller and a number that works for us, the buyer. And if that number doesn't work out, you just got to walk away.
And what is your not loan to value, but rather value at which you want to buy the house to make it profitable?
Yeah, so it's not just a simple formula that we go off of, but I can give you the formula, and that's 70% of what the house is worth. So the ARV, or after repair value, times 0.7 will give you the number you should give them as if you're giving them a cash offer. But you also have to factor in your holding costs. How long is it going to take to repair the house? Is the house in retail condition, or does it need $120,000 of repairs? So then you also have to look at the inventory. Some places have 2 years of inventory. And when I say inventory, I mean it may take 12 to 24 months to get a house sold after you're done flipping it, after you're done fixing it up. It might just sit there if you have high inventory in the area. And even if you bought it at the 70% price minus the cost of repairs, you may still lose money because it just won't sell. So here in this specific house, in this specific situation, we have about, I would say, a nice balance of inventory here. Homes are selling relatively quickly. There's a lot of comps, meaning there's a lot of homes selling that are similar to this one. And they're selling all for around the price we're going to list this for. So all of these signs, in addition to the 70% rule, would mean, hey, let's buy it. So the numbers could make sense on the 70% rule, and you could still get a bad deal. So that's why you have to really do the right kind of analysis to make sure you're making a good decision. And you have to be prepared for Plan B. Plan B could be you're stuck renting it out. Plan B could be you bleed money until you sell. So make sure you have a cushion in there, because nothing ever works out the way you want it to every single time.
Mm-hmm. So how long did this take?
So I would say it took about 3 to 4 months to complete from start to finish. Once we did the negotiations with the seller, funny story on this one, if you want to hear the backstory.
Yeah.
Okay. So as I mentioned earlier, the seller came to us days before the auction. And if you've ever bought a house, you know it takes 30 to 45 days to buy. You have to go through an underwriting process, get clean title, clear all the hairs on title on Schedule C. And with this one, the seller had done what's called an affidavit of heirship, which is bypassing the probate process. She'd done it herself. So she hadn't hired an attorney to do the affidavit. She'd recorded it with the county herself. So she did the paperwork wrong, number one. So we couldn't get clean title. Number two, she didn't inform us of an heir that existed that also had a 50% equity or ownership stake in the property. And this was the day before the house was going to get foreclosed on. We found this out. So what we did is we said, you can sue the lender, maybe to get a wrongful foreclosure lawsuit started, to get a restraining order granted against the lender to delay the auction, but she didn't even have the money to do that. So we said, okay, well, if you need other debts resolved and you're trying to keep this property, you could potentially file Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And she knew an attorney, but she didn't even want to pay the attorney. So she wanted to do it herself. So 10 minutes before the scheduled auction time, she completed her Chapter 13 bankruptcy. And she didn't inform me that she had completed it until after the house had sold at auction. So we have a timestamp on a bankruptcy 10 minutes before the house sold. So what she did, which I don't recommend waiting until the last minute like this lady or doing everything yourself, she basically didn't follow the advice we gave her, and she ended up getting foreclosed on. But because she had filed bankruptcy 10 minutes before the auction, she was able to go before the bankruptcy judge, say, hey, I filed bankruptcy, let's get this reversed. And the attorney on the mortgage company's side fought it. And then luckily, the judge was very sympathetic towards the prior owner, and they reversed the foreclosure, and we were able to close with a hard money loan. And what I mean by hard money is it's typically a loan you get, a rehab loan, where it covers the purchase price and rehab costs. I'm lucky enough to have a network of lenders that help me, and the hard money person approved it. So I ended up paying just the closing costs out of my own pocket, and the rest were covered by the hard money lender.
Wow. Okay. So down to the wire. That's pretty intense.
It was a mess.
Oh my gosh. And so can you tell us some of the numbers, like the overall,
Yeah, I remember the house sold at auction in the 300s, and we ended up buying it in the low 200s.
Okay.
So even an investor that would have bought it at the auction was willing to pay about $100,000 more than what we paid for it. So the numbers are purchase price. We'll bust out my calculator for this. So right now we're projecting the house could sell low to mid 500s, but let's just be safe and call it 500. So what we could have bought it for was 500,000 times 0.7, which equals 350,000. But we have to also subtract the cost of repairs, which were 120,000 minus 120. So we should have bought it for 230,000 or less. But I think we bought it for around $208,000 to $212,000. So we purchased it below the 70% rule, and we also have all the other indicators in place: low inventory, low days on market, tight comps, everything's selling for around the same price per square foot. And then as a bonus, this house is fully renovated. The roof has architectural style shingles, everything's brand new inside. So we may enter into a favorable atmosphere where multiple people want to buy it. So we can't predict the future, but we're expecting that it should sell for 500 and up. If not, we still have a little bit of margin. So it's always good to buy it less than the 70% rule. You don't have to buy it for 70%. You never want to offer more than 70% though.
So, yeah. Wow, very exciting. And when did y'all finish? How long has it been on the market now?
We haven't listed it yet.
Oh, okay.
So we just finished repairs. I think the stove is still on order, and we're going to stage it. As soon as we're staged, we'll get drone shots. We'll get a Matterport walkthrough, which is like a 3D click-through walkthrough, and we'll get professional photography done and get it listed and sold. We can't predict when it'll sell, but we're willing to go 6 months or more. But my expectation is we'll have it sold within 2 months.
Okay, very exciting. So what is your recommendation to others? I get people calling me sometimes, friends of mine, colleagues, who say, hey, I'm thinking about buying a rental property, or I'm thinking about fixing and flipping. And I usually advise them not to, because I know that there's so much more that goes into it. And and I think what's your recommendation to people starting out?
Well, let's break that down. So for people that want to get into real estate and invest in real estate, there's passive investment and then there's active investment. Active investment would be like what I'm doing. I'm literally flipping houses. I'm not swinging the hammer most of the time, but it's definitely time intensive, risk intensive, and the rewards are there, but you have to do it right. So if you haven't flipped a house before and you're a big fan of watching these flipping shows, you might want to try not doing it. That's my advice, because a lot of people fail because they underestimate repairs. They buy a house for retail and then they believe it's worth more than what they actually bought it for. So it really comes down to the numbers. Your numbers have to be tight and solid, and you have to have a power team. You have to have contractors, you have to have realtors, and not just any old contractor or any old realtor, but a realtor that will be realistic with your price, contractor that will be fair and get the job done. And you need to have lenders. You can't do it with all your own money. You can't buy, I remember one month I bought 15 properties. I can't do that with all my liquid. I might have had to sell everything I own just to buy those other properties. So you really have to have a whole team built up around you to make it happen. So I would say if you're just starting out, you might want to try partnering with someone who's experienced. I happen to partner with 90% of the people that I work with are partnership deals. This deal itself was a partnership because there's only one of me and I can't go out there and talk to everyone. So I have people bring me leads. I cut them in on the profits. If you have a lot of money and you want to invest, you might not want to waste it on a deal that you have no idea what you're doing with. So I would say if you want to be a passive investor, invest in deals that are good deals. If you want to be an active investor, partner with someone that knows what they're doing so you don't lose your shirt.
Yeah, that's very cool. And I know you kind of offer some options for passive investors as well.
Yes, I do. With this one specifically, it was just a hard money lender that I have. But with other deals, for example, we'll purchase a house keeping the mortgage in place, and they might be $10,000 or $20,000 behind. So I can do micro or smaller loans on a second or third lien position with decent returns, and I'm a personal guarantor of those loans, meaning I put my $3 million in net worth on the line, guaranteeing the loan, and my 830 credit on the line. So, those are the ones I like to keep as rentals, and I'll refinance later and get your money back at the very end. You get monthly disbursements with reasonable rates, better than you can get in any checking account, and without the risk of losing value like you would have in the stock market. So it's a good way to get a nice little return without the risk, is investing with someone who knows what they're doing versus trying to do everything on your own.
Yeah, I highly recommend it. And I've mentioned that to many people myself. Like, if you are interested in fixing and flipping or investing in single family homes, I've got someone who you can invest with, because I know you. You're going to talk a little bit about people who want to acquire a rental, what does that look like?
Yeah. So the second part. So now that we've covered the passive investing part, where you just partner up with someone or become a lender, if you want to be active and own rental property that increases your wealth over time, like I have, um, you want to get a deal that cash flows. And what I mean by that is you look at your mortgage payment. Let's say your mortgage payment is $1,400 a month and your rental amount is $2,000. So you might have a gross cash flow of $600 a month, but then you have to account for rental property income tax. Then you have to account for hailstorm that blows through and paying your insurance deductible. Then you have to account for vacancies. Maybe your tenant has to move out unexpectedly and you go a month or two without having any sort of rental income. So you want to make sure you get something that cash flows well to support those losses. And some single family homes just won't cash flow well. So if you're looking to make a lot of long-term passive income, single family homes are not where it's at. It's actually in commercial real estate where you buy one apartment complex with 30 doors, 100 doors, and you get a lot of that passive income there. Single family homes are mainly for building wealth with a little bit of cash flow, sometimes negative cash flow. So I would recommend, if you do want to have a couple of rental properties, don't buy them on the MLS.
Yeah.
Don't buy them from a realtor, because what they're going to do is sell it for the maximum price. And in today's current economy and today's current interest rate scenario, you're looking at potentially having a mortgage payment that's much higher than fair market rent, which is losing money every month, which is negative cash flowing. And if you buy that property, you won't make money. Now, if you're looking to build some long-term wealth and cash flow is not as important, you might negative cash flow for a couple of years and then earn more in equity when you sell it a few years later. But what I personally do when I get rentals, and I'll use this as an example. I have a property over in Fort Worth. The mortgage payment is $1,470. The fair market value of the house is $236,000, and the gentleman bought it in 2021, defaulted on his loan, and is getting foreclosed on. And he's only about $15,000 behind. So rather than me buying that house on the MLS with a 20% down payment and paying $2,000 a month, and the fair market rent's only $1,800, I'm taking over this gentleman's mortgage, and he's just walking away, getting a few $1,000s, and I'm buying a rental property from him. So I'm going to turn around and rent that out. The mortgage is in his name, the title or the deed is in my name, and I'm making that cash flow. So if you want to buy a rental, make sure you buy one that has equity in it or that has favorable loan terms so that you can cash flow. Otherwise, you're going to get stuck. Have you ever heard the term "don't catch a falling knife"? You don't want to cut yourself on your first rental. Now, with my first rental, it was through necessity. I didn't want to sell my house at a loss, so I just kept it as rental. And when we first bought it, it was only cash flowing about $200 a month. But over the years, rent goes up, inflation goes up, the mortgage payment stays about the same, with the exception of property tax and insurance increases. So you do tend to make more money over time as a rental, as long as you don't refinance. And you just have to have maybe about 6 months of cash reserves. So if your mortgage payment is $2,000 a month, you want to have 6 times 2 or $12,000 just set aside in that same account that services your mortgage, just for a rainy day, just for that time when you need to replace an HVAC or when you have a tenant move out and you need the mortgage covered. So you want to have 6 months of reserves, you want to have a few $100s of cash flow, and you want to have some equity if you want to buy a rental property. And it's not for the faint of heart.
Yeah, it is not.
Now,
I tried my hand at it briefly, right?
But here's a few other pointers, though. We're all about outsourcing and scaling in our community in real estate. I actually happen to self-manage everything right now. I don't feel like I own enough rental property to outsource the management of that property. And it's kind of a job now. Mm-hmm. So once you get to a certain point, you can outsource everything and free up your life. But for right now, I'm fine with self-managing. So I use apartments.com as a platform to manage all of the rent, the late payments, all the communication with the sellers, repairs, everything. I get my tax form sent to me at the end of every year. And it's free to the renter, free to me, unless the renter decides to pay with a credit card, then they get charged a small fee. As far as sourcing tenants, you can get on Facebook Marketplace, take some good photos. As far as sourcing tenants outside of Facebook Marketplace, you can get on Zillow, maybe pay a premium listing fee, about $30 or so, get premium listed for a month, find tenants that way. And then another platform that I like to use is Turbo Tenant. So Turbo Tenant will post to apartments.com, realtor.com, Zumper, different places that list properties for rent. And then you'll have all these people asking you, can I rent your property? And 80% of them won't be qualified to rent. And what do I mean by that? Just like when you buy a house, you have to have good credit, you have to have an income. If you just let any old person rent the house, they might not be able to afford the rent. They might not keep their promises. And a good indicator of whether or not you keep your promises is your credit score. So I like to have a minimum credit threshold of 630 or higher to be able to secure the property. And I like to set a requirement for being approved or denied automatically for that credit score and income. So if your income is 3 times higher than your rent, then you're approved tentatively. If your credit score is 630 or higher, you're approved tentatively. Then what we do is we do the background check. I use My Smart Move, or you can use the built-in tools from Zillow, and they'll do a credit and background check to make sure they're not dealing drugs, arrested for who knows what. And if there's any sort of criminal record or domestic violence, drug use, anything like that, you look at it and you deny them. And I would say for every 5 people that apply, 1 is actually qualified. So when you hear these horror stories, oh, I don't want to rent my property, they're going to trash it. That doesn't have to be you. You just set a simple criteria for credit and income, and everything else tends to fall in place. You also want to watch out for tenants that may smoke or own pets. I've bought plenty of property that has had pets in them. I have a dog, and we have to replace our carpet and have a carpet cleaner every now and again. So you want to be okay with having pets or not okay with having pets. My rental property, if you look here at this floor, this is a pet-friendly type of house. It's easy to clean up. But if you have a tenant that has 5 dogs and 3 cats and a ferret, you might not want to rent it to them. So you evaluate everyone on a case-by-case basis and set clear criteria for smoking, pets, credit, income, and you need to be prepared to say no to people. You need to be prepared to also answer questions on if you want to rent to someone that is subsidized by the city, by the county, by the government. So that is commonly referred to as a housing voucher or Section 8. There's a lot of people that want to rent that don't have enough income, and the city or county will subsidize their rent payment if they can make a small payment. So I have a soft spot for elderly people that might be on Section 8, or someone that takes care of everything. But you can still require someone to have excellent credit even if they need a voucher to qualify. And your house has to go through an inspection as well. Another tip for rentals is reach out to your city when you're thinking about buying a rental property, and ask for code compliance or rental and say, hey, I'm thinking about buying this property to turn it into a rental. And they might send someone out to check out your electrical box, make sure your plumbing is to code, make sure they have the special Texas locks that are lockable only from the interior for your tenants, and to make sure everything's up to code and safe. And you might have to pay a small fee just to keep it as a rental. Some cities don't require anything other than inspection. Some require a $70 fee once a year. So it's best to talk to your local city. And if the home belongs to an HOA, some HOAs don't allow rentals or don't allow Airbnbs, midterm rentals. So you want to make sure that you're compliant with HOA covenants and regulations, so you don't end up buying a house that you think you can rent out and then they already have too many rentals and you're stuck. So make sure you follow all the laws and regulations, and just don't be scared. Don't be scared. Once you're informed, you'll be able to handle it.
Yeah.
Do your research.
Thank you so much. This was really exciting. It's such a beautiful home. I'm really glad to have been able to see it. And thank you for the tour. And thank you for allowing us to interview you.
No problem.
Hope you'll come back.
Will do.